You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Edition of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball, as we've arrived at our final episode of 2022, right? We're not doing one next week, right?
We're not doing one next week, no.
It's our mid-show show prep. My name is Tyler Mond. Sam Dykstra is in New York City at MLB headquarters. Hello, Sam.
Hello, I am in the Edgar Martinez room currently.
Hall of Famer.
Which means I'm not allowed to bring a glove in here.
Right.
Only a bat and a microphone.
Yep.
But it's exciting that, the holidays are coming up. Tyler, I know you're on the road right now. You're in Oregon.
I am. I'm in Corvallis, Oregon, home of the fantastic Oregon State baseball program, which I am not covering while I'm out here. But, it's a three-time national championship team. I plan on walking by their facility later today. I actually know a guy who some of you have probably already heard of, and a lot more of you will be hearing of when he becomes a draft pick. But Travis Bazzana, who is a middle infielder for Oregon State. I know Travis and was hoping that he was still going to be out here so I could get a little tour of this Oregon State baseball facility. He's already back home in Australia for the holidays, so I'm just gonna wander around and look into fences and stuff, hey, what's going on out here at this Oregon State program. But yeah, we've had a few beeves on the show before the show in the past. I walked by Adley Rutschman's All-American plaque that they have in Gill Coliseum here, where they honor all of the All-American selections among all their sports. And yeah, this place is awesome. This is my first time to Corvallis, but I'm excited to go check out the baseball stuff later today before.
Yeah, I guess it's still kind of early.
Yeah,
but I'm surprised they haven't officially deemed it like the Adley Rutschman bullpen or
right, the
Adley Rutschman backstop or something.
I haven't seen a statue of him yet. And
yeah,
again, granted, I haven't walked around a lot, but I'm hoping that there will be multiple statues. Adley,
give it time.
Yeah, absolutely.
After his second MVP award for the Orioles, maybe that's when.
Two-time All-American. I mean, man, that dude's body of work is crazy, and nothing that he is more proud of than his time as a guest on the Show Before the Show podcast. So we welcome you into this week's episode as we get set to wrap up calendar year 2022. We got a fun conversation with New York Mets prospect, the 12th ranked prospect in the Mets organization, Dominic Hamel, who will join the show coming up here in a little bit. Dom told us that he'll get the question from people who don't really know baseball that well. Have you ever heard of Cole Hamels? And Dom's last name is Hamel without an S. And he says, yeah, he's my second cousin. That's why he has the S on the end and I don't. But Dom will join us coming up here in a little bit. Fun conversation with Dominic Hamel. So Mets fans, you can get excited about that. As if you needed more to get excited about today. The baseball world went to sleep last night hearing, wow, this Carlos Correa to the Giants thing seems to be falling through. And then woke up this morning, Carlos Correa is now a New York Met, which is more than a little insane. That's kind of been the theme of 2022 baseball wise, as we're going to take a look back at this calendar year 2022. Fun time to be a Mets fan, at least over the offseason. It wasn't at the end of the 2022 postseason, but they keep adding on. It's amazing what happens when you've got an owner who just really wants to win and wants to spend that money to do so.
Yeah, I mean, the Mets are objectively better now. That's what every organization should strive to be at the end of an offseason. There's somehow debate over, is this ruining baseball or are the Mets trying to buy a championship? They're trying to win a championship. And you go do that by getting better players. Carlos Correa, arguably the best shortstop on the market, and now he's going to play third base for them. That's fascinating. I mean, we talked in a previous show about what does Carlos Correa mean for the Giants and Marco Luciano? Now all of a sudden we're having that conversation about Brett Beatty and the Mets, and the Mets are glad to have that conversation. I mean, one thing they've done that I don't think has really been highlighted enough by all this is that they are spending money. They are not trading prospects. We'll talk about this with Dom Hamel, though. Like, it could happen at any time. They could explore the trade market and whatever. But it was not an overly special farm system beforehand. And Steve Cohen has talked about we need to rebuild it. Trades don't rebuild it, they deplete it. So now you're going out and spending money to get guys, and you're keeping your prospects around at the same time. Francisco Alvarez, I mean, I know their catching position is very confusing right now between James McCann, Tomas Nido, Narvaez, who they just signed. Now Alvarez is basically a major league ready guy too. How are they going to sort that out? Good problem to have. Brett Beatty, third baseman, played some left field in the past. I think he's played 29 games in left field over the last 2 seasons, so he knows the position. Carlos Correa is going to be at third base. Guess what, Brett Beatty? You are bringing an outfield glove to spring training and Port St. Lucie. Also not a bad problem to have. So the Mets are in a much better place now, certainly than they were at the end of the postseason. But even over the last 24 hours, getting Carlos Correa in that lineup. And then either he or Pete Alonso have to bat fifth. That's crazy. Like it's such a deeper lineup now. Good on the Mets for going out and getting Correa after those issues. Now, all of this we have to say, pending physical.
Yes, that is something that we do have to.
The Mets have not announced this. They have not confirmed that the signing
clarify.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like the Giants before them had not confirmed this. They had announced a press conference that then got canceled because of reportedly issues with the physical. So, you know, maybe something else blows up here. I doubt it. I don't think the Mets work this out.
I don't think you make the move unless you are very certain that everything's going to go fine physically to bring him into the organization. But I did see a tweet from somebody who said the Giants had Aaron Judge for 7 minutes and Carlos Correa for 6 days. It has been a weird offseason for the Giants. They still might sign Arson Judge.
They could.
That's still a distinct possibility. But I haven't figured out a fire related pun for Carlos Correa yet. So fun time to be a Mets fan. And that's essentially how 2022. Well, I can't say that's how 2022 will close because we've had a lot of wild things that have happened in baseball in 2022, and we still got 10 more days. But Sam, when we look back on the minor league landscape, the prospect landscape in 2022, what are the things that you will take away from this year? What were the biggest themes, the prospect graduations, the way that prospects factored into major league pushes, the continued growth of guys through the minor league chains, rule changes that obviously are now going to be implemented at the major league level that we've seen at the minor league level? I think that's a big theme that we'll take out of 2022. But when you look back on this year, what will this year be defined as on the prospect side?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on a lot of the major points there, so I'll just expand on them a little bit. When we started the year, we thought about the big three, right? Like there were 3 guys who had separated themselves from the pack in Bobby Witt Jr., Adley Rutschman, and Julio Rodriguez as being the top 3 prospects in baseball. And we said at the time, like, there's an argument to be made. You could jumble these guys however you want them. And as the season went on, those 3 guys kind of came through. Now, I know Bobby Witt Jr. did not have the special season that a lot of people were hoping for, but he still showed off good power. He still showed off really good speed. You know, he's going to be a cornerstone of Kansas City for a long time. Meanwhile, Julio Rodriguez actually added speed. Now he's a legit plus runner, is a star center fielder for the Mariners, who made the playoffs for the first time in a long time. And Adley Rutschman is exactly who everybody thought he would be. He might be like the second best catcher in baseball now. So those guys graduated. Like those guys lived up to the hype, which was amazing to see. But now where we sit today, I think when you look at the top 100, it's much more wide open, which can be fun in some ways, because now there's like actual debate. Like we have Francisco Alvarez right now. When we update the list, it could be Gunnar Henderson. It could be Corbin Carroll. You know, we're going to reach out to some folks and see how things kind of move around. But there isn't this real set of guys who just are separated from the pack. There's a much more livelier debate. And I think that's good. I think that's good for baseball if we are getting back to a point where it's not just, oh, there's this guy and, you know, once he graduates, we're done. It's like, no, there's going to be more movement here. We saw guys like Jackson Churio become somebody who if you wanted to, you could make the case he's in the argument for number one overall. I don't think he's there yet. Some hit tool questions, whatever, but he's knocking on the door in a really fun way. Anthony Volpe built on his breakout season last year to show that he is that good and is somebody that the Yankees should be planning around. Jordan Walker, top 6 prospect in baseball now, moved to the outfield at the end of the year, showed a really strong arm. Some of these guys are exactly who we thought they were, and some of these guys are breaking out in special ways. And getting back to that, and we'll talk to Ben about this in a little bit, so much of this year was defined by a feeling more of normalcy, of like just getting a minor league season in without concerns. I know beginning of the year, obviously we were worried about a work stoppage, but that wasn't going to affect the minor leagues. But 2021, it was like, what are these guys going to be after the lost 2020 season? What did, are the guys who were at the alt site ahead of those who weren't? What does all this stuff mean? There were a lot more breakouts in 2021 just because we hadn't seen those guys in 2 years. Now they were building on something.
Jump in real quick and say the mere mention of the term alt site just put like a chill down my spine.
Right.
I'm so fine with never having to talk about alt sites ever again. Now that the baseball landscape, the sports landscape have returned to some normalcy. But man, yeah, that pandemic year, no minor league season, delayed start to the minor league season in 2021, the limits to crowd sizes, the travel pods, essentially, like, man, it just like puts you back in that frame of mind of so much uncertainty, not just obviously with sports and with the baseball landscape and all that, but just how life felt around that time. Not that we're out of the pandemic by any stretch, but yeah, I'm very good to not be thinking about alternate sites and taxi squads and all that.
Yeah, and it's not like we've also jumped right back into 2019 feeling either, right? Like the slimming down of the minor leagues means it's a little weird when guys jump from the complex league straight to low A or single A, because that's a bigger jump than ever. There isn't the Appy League in between. There's not the Pioneer League in between. There's not New York Penn League, whatever. So that's still taking some getting used to. So when I look forward to 2023, it's like everything's really settled in at this point. But 2022 was as close to normal as possible. And when I say like there were more breakouts in 2021, there were still some really good ones. I mentioned Churio, obviously. But you look at some other guys like Ellie De La Cruz. If you cover prospects at all, he's a household name. Like it's really incredible. The year he had this year was darn near historic. When you look at the numbers he almost put up. I mean, he put up really good numbers, obviously, but like we were talking about him as being a potential 30-40 guy, and he fell 2 homers short of that. I love debating Ellie De La Cruz, but now that's something we were not doing a year ago. So breakouts still happen. But yeah, in terms of like rules changes, Tyler, how do you feel like that affected things this year? Because we saw the expansion of ABS in the Florida State League. There was more of that. We saw it in Charlotte for a while. We saw it in the Pacific Coast League. We saw challenges come. How do you feel like this season of minor league baseball could kind of define what baseball is moving forward?
Yeah, that's what's so interesting is that this is not just, for so long we saw the Arizona Fall League as the testing ground for potential rules changes when it came to the big leagues, because the AFL being an MLB owned and controlled property, they could sort of implement those things without having to go through some of the hoops that the previous arrangement with minor league baseball, when it was its own independent structure, that they would have had to do for rules changes there. Now, following the restructure, the takeover of minor league baseball by Major League Baseball, these things become implemented much more widely, much more across the board. And what's interesting is I think we are seeing, and I sort of like this from Major League Baseball standpoint, we're seeing an openness to all possibilities of how to improve the game, how to change the game, how to make things different, how to make things better. I personally don't love all of the rule changes, but I do like the fact that there is some mobility with Major League Baseball's focus on making the game better. It's not just this monolithic thing of like, well, this is the game that we've always known. It's the way the game will always be, and that is infallible and unchangeable. I like the fact that there is some nimbleness to this from Major League Baseball's standpoint in implementing some new rules, implementing some different looks to the game, bringing those through the minors and into the major leagues. Now, that being said, I think there are some things that it'll be fascinating to watch how they really do affect play at the major league level. Thinking about the pie slice rule, the shift changes, all those types of things that for the last several years we've been hearing. Those are the changes that need to be implemented. Well, now they're there. How much does that change the way the big league game is played? One thing that I'm most excited to see, honestly, is, and this is kind of a cliche, the baseball that I liked when I was a kid, I want to see some of that return in the landscape of stolen bases. We saw a gigantic spike in stolen bases this year across the minor leagues as the larger bases were put in. And you think to yourself, like, well, how much is a 3 square inch change on the bases really going to make a difference? Think of every bang bang stolen base that you've ever seen between first and second, or second and third, and whatever. A runner is now 6 inches closer to the bag than he was when you saw those bang bang plays, 5, 10, 20 years ago, because the bases have been increased by 3 square inches, at every stop. And so that, to me, changes the dynamic of the game completely. And the fact that we saw, I've referenced this stat a couple of times, but back in August, I think we already had a dozen players or something like that in minor league baseball who were over 50 stolen bases. And that was something that hadn't happened in a decade. So I like that.
We should say pickoff ruls obviously affect that as well.
And pickoff rules the same way, with the limit to the amount of times you can throw over. And that element being inserted back into the game, I think, will provide a lot of excitement. But yeah, this is really the first stage in which minor league baseball becomes not only a proving ground for players, but also a testing ground for what is the next generation of Major League Baseball going to look like. And that's a huge step. That's a huge landmark moment in the continued history of minor league baseball. Things are very different now with the operation of minor league baseball versus what they have been for the last, 120 years or so. But they are, this is the way that the game is going to be from now on. And I'm very interested to see how that makes itself present in the big league game going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to think about things becoming like the proving ground, but also the adaptability of this stuff, where I feel like a couple of years ago when robot umpires were coming to the Florida State League and obviously to the AFL as well, there was just this feeling of inevitability that, the ABS system was going to be the future of baseball, and it was going to be every pitch call, and it's just how things were going to go. And now things evolved to have the challenge system. And a lot of people I talk to is like, this is the perfect hybrid. It doesn't slow the game down. It's not like we're going back to the phone booth, calling New York. They're going to tell us ball or strike. It's instantaneous. You pat your head, you challenge the call. Yeah. It's the pitcher, the batter, the catcher. That's it. It's not like the right fielder can come charging in and like, I think it was a strike from my viewpoint. It moves the game quicker, but it also keeps the game honest. And you have a limit on challenges. If you're correct, you get it back, whatever. That wouldn't have happened if we had just assumed like ABS is perfect. We did 1 year of it. It's good. That's it. Let's move it to the majors. Like some of this stuff is going to be hammered out. Now, sometimes it's going to affect prospect development and player development. And that's when I get concerned, is like, if the pitch clock is too short, if they extend the mound, which has happened in the Atlantic League, like if guys are throwing too hard, that causes injuries, that affects guys' careers. Then I get a little worried. But when it's something like you're talking about with pickoff attempts and all of a sudden encouraging more action on the base pass, hey, that's fun to watch. That's good. Like that allows some of the speedier guys to have more value. And I think, we talked about this with the A's trade a while back. Like, obviously they see something in Asturi Ruiz that thinks he could probably be more valuable in the future versions of baseball that are going to be played at the top level than anybody else is seeing. It's because he's an elite runner. He led the minors in steals last year. But all of a sudden those guys are a little bit more valuable, and that means we have to evaluate them differently. So it's a wheel that keeps turning. It's not going to stop turning. I don't think we're ever going to get to a version of the game where like, this is what it is. To draw a quick comparison, I've been reading this book about soccer tactics called Inverting the Pyramid. And in the very beginning, it's funny just thinking about like soccer was invented in the 19th century. It's not that long ago. It's not something that was played in England in the 1100s or something. So it's a made up game. But they were talking about the English version of the game and the Scottish version. And in those early days, guess what the Scottish version did? They invented passing.
Ha!
You know what I mean? Which I only say that to be like, games are always evolving. You think like, I have this game now. Here's what it is. I'm not saying 2023 baseball is the same as 1870 soccer, but like all of these things are made up by humans and they're going to evolve. They're going to change. I like that we get to see them in the minor leagues. And so that by the time a lot of these guys make the majors and these rules are hard and fast, they've experienced them first. I think that's a big detail.
Hey man, there was not a 3-point shot in college basketball 40 years ago. You know what I mean? Like
there wasn't a shot clock.
Yeah. The NFL,
the Princeton offense.
Teams were not spreading out 5 wide receivers on every single pass 15 years ago. There were teams running the I formation constantly. Sports are constantly evolving. And one of the things that we both, and I know probably everybody listening to the show loves about baseball, is its commitment to its history and its identity. But baseball's constantly evolving as well, and that's one of the things that I think instead of, if I had to nail down my thesis on sports and especially on baseball in the 21st century, baseball needs to be more embracing of the excitement of its future rather than clinging to the identity of its past, because sports are constantly evolving and the evolution of sports is a good thing. It is a fun thing. It is an exciting thing. Baseball going forward is not going to be worse than baseball was in the past. It might be different, but it's certainly not going to be worse. You cannot look at the talent that is currently playing Major League and minor league baseball and think to yourself, we were better off 40 years ago. No, that's not the case. It could be a different looking game. That certainly does not mean that it is a worse game. And you know what? 40 years ago, people were complaining that baseball was different than it was 40 years before that. It's just the same. Everything in sports is cyclical. And this is from a lot of different stages across the sports landscape. One thing that drives me insane, baseball national commentary being focused on, well, in my day, things were different, things were better. No, they weren't. You don't flip on, a telecast to watch an NBA game or an NFL game and hear major color analysts talking about how bad things are today compared to when they played. Tony Romo doesn't do that. Robert Griffin III doesn't do that. It's a very different and certainly weirdly cliquish world in baseball in that. But I think if you're somebody who listens to this show, you probably recognize there's a lot of really cool stuff coming in baseball. There's a lot of really cool stuff that's already at the big league level in baseball. And the fact that comes through the minor leagues is something that we're really proud of and we're really excited about on a regular basis. Embrace that. That's what's cool about sports, man. The evolution of sports is what is coolest about sports to me. And taking on these new things that have been developed, have been implemented, have evolved in the minor leagues and applying them to the big league level, that's exciting. I think that's really, really cool. And it's something that, if you're going out to, an Akron Rubber Ducks game or to a Eugene Emeralds game, and you're seeing these rules implemented in 2022, you're seeing that before they're seeing them in Cleveland or in San Francisco or in wherever. That's something neat, and it's something unique to baseball. And I love that. And the wave of the future is something that you should be excited to catch, not something that you should be afraid of.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's one of the big things too, is like you were talking about like the future of the game is better than the past of the game. Think about how many people are throwing 100 miles an hour now.
Right.
Like how many people are throwing 95?
Right.
Compared 95 used to be like flame emojis. Like, can you believe this guy's throwing 95? Now 95 is closer than ever to being the average fastball.
Yeah.
It's still above average. Don't get me wrong, but like it's crazy. And we have, go back to Ellie De La Cruz hitting 460-foot home runs
right
on a weekly basis. Like it's insane. And all of these things, not all of these changes, but a lot of these changes are made to put the talents back in the center square. To put like the focus back on, hey, these guys do things really well. Let's make sure they're in a place to do them really well often. So even with a pitch clock, Daniel Espino has really good pitchers. Let's make sure he's throwing them as much as possible. Like we can keep the game moving and keep the focus on what he's doing and not the space in between. guys who are running, guys like Esteury Ruiz or Jackson Churio or whatever. Like, let's get them putting balls in play and then running around the park. Like that's where this all comes down to, is that this next generation is super exciting, and whatever we can do to get their skills on display the most is where the future of the game should be. So hopefully all of this is moving towards that. But yeah, this is just making me more excited for 2023. All of a sudden, I was just like, I've been talking about 2022 for so long. I want to see what Jackson Churio does next and Ellie De La Cruz does next.
And
so,
you know what I'm excited about, and that's the World Baseball Classic, which is coming back.
Also true, yeah.
Well, so we got a ton of good stuff to look forward to in 2023. All right, Sam, let's tee it up. What do we got interview-wise this week? Tell us about the young dude, the flame-throwing right-hander for the New York Mets organization, Dom Hamel, who joins us.
Yeah, Dom Hamel, we get him at a very interesting time, obviously, because it's good to have anybody from the Mets on your podcast this week. We did not schedule this knowing that Carlos Correa was going to get signed, but we touch on that a little bit here. But Dominic Hamel, we call him Dom in the interview. That's what he prefers. His player page says Dominic. Just want to clear that up real quick. Number 12 prospect in the Mets organization, was their minor league pitcher of the year this year after posting a 3.25 ERA and striking out 145 batters in 119 innings at single A and high A, finishing out the year in Brooklyn. Somebody who was draft eligible many, many times before he went in the third round.
5 times.
5 times.
He was draft eligible, which I honestly had not even realized was possible. 5 times.
It also makes him sound like he's 27.
Right.
He's 23.
He's 23.
Yeah.
Insane.
He was just between the pandemic year, between a few years in JUCO, between high school, like he was draft eligible for a while. But he has 2 pitches that are really, really good in his fastball and his slider. Because of the spin rate, we're going to get into that with him. I'm going to finish previewing this interview now. Here's us talking to Dom Hamel.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
We are excited on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast to go to the New York Mets organization, which when we booked this interview, had one major league looking roster, and then overnight from last night to tonight, at a completely different major league looking roster. Crazy. And we are joined by Dom Hamel, the 12th ranked prospect in the Mets organization. I would imagine it's a little crazy waking up in the Mets system today and realizing, oh, we got Carlos Correa overnight last night. What happened there? How are you, Dom?
I'm doing well, man. I woke up just as, just shook, really. I mean, because it was crazy how fast that happens. And, I've gone through my first year and I've seen, trades and like how quick that all gets moving. But yeah, just seeing the physical with the Giants to him signing this morning to a big old deal like that, like that's absurd. It's awesome.
Is an exciting time to be a Mets prospect, to be a Mets fan. And Dom, you are now, fully into being a pro ball player and somebody who was drafted in the 3rd round in 2021, but you got a full season under your belt in 2022. Last year, we're coming out of the pandemic. You're going into the draft. You get picked by a team, make a couple of appearances. That first year, especially in your draft season, is always different. To have gone through 2022, have the full process of an offseason, spring training, getting into full season work, and now be into your second offseason. What has this calendar year been like for you being a full-fledged pro ball player?
Yeah, it's definitely been nice. I kind of got that gauge of, how the season is. And, when you're playing through it, it's always different. When I came in, I was like, all right, I'm about 120 games on paper. Like, let's thug it out. But, as the season goes on, I was seeing where, like, the super regionals that just ended for college. And I'm like, wow, we still have so much season to go. But, I was around a lot of great guys. So, I mean, just asking questions, they're able to talk about their work routines and how they ration themselves, pretty much their bodies throughout the year. And so right now I'm back out here in Florida. I'm training for the off season, but I'm training with some major leaguers right now, so same thing. I'm able to ask them about how they work through the year, what it's like on their bodies and that type of that type of stuff, and they've been really helpful. So, I mean, I feel like I got a pretty good grasp of it now. Obviously, as I move up, I'm still going to be playing some more games on top of that. But yeah, I feel a lot more comfortable getting that first year out of the way. I was a little anxious to get going, but we're feeling good right now.
Yeah, and speaking of that off-season work, first, do you want to drop the names of who are you working out with, or major leaguers?
I'm up at Fisher right now, but I mean, there's guys like Pat Murphy, Cole Tucker, Greg Allen, just handful of the guys from all over different teams. But like I was talking about with before with Arizona, there's so many guys that like to come to Arizona for their off-season training because it's great weather, great area, and the facilities out there. You know, there's a lot of guys who are also going out there, so it's just a great way to connect to in the off-season, really.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And in terms of what your day-to-day is right now, as you're gearing up to add more innings in 2023 for your second full season, how does your day-to-day now compare to what you were doing at this time last year?
Yeah, I mean, it's not too far off, honestly. I was going to the same facility last year, but obviously that was kind of a different off season. It was a little shorter, actually it was a little longer. And then that was kind of my first time being in that big league like training setting, you know, constantly for an off season at least. And yeah, now that I'm back, I mean, I'm kind of still in the same program. Just started throwing bullpens not too long ago. But yeah, I'm throwing, lifting 5 days a week, getting after it. They got some good lifts going there. And yeah, pretty much after that, I'm done by like 1. I just be chilling at my grandparents. I'm staying at my grandparents right now in Arizona. But yeah, no, we just hang out a lot, really killed time. Today we got tamales going. So after this, we're gonna get the workshop up and open. But it's a lot of free time. A lot of free time.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's a good time to enjoy it after the grind of a very long first full season. But let's get into that
no
first full
kidding.
season.
No
You started
kidding.
out at St. Lucie. You ended the year at Brooklyn, progressed in a way you hope a pitcher would in his first full season. But you ended with a 3.25 ERA, 119 innings, 145 strikeouts in that span. You were named Mets minor league pitcher of the year. What were your biggest takeaways about this season? Like, what did you learn about yourself having gone through 100 plus innings?
Really it's just execution. I think when I came from college into that first little short season or even the beginning of this past season, I kind of had in my head, you know, I wanted to do so well, and I didn't realize, you know, I was kind of putting too much pressure on myself to, you know, try to make the slider grosser or just something like that when really, you know, I had this stuff. It was just in terms of execution. So I think when I started in St. Lucie, I started off a little slow and it was honestly kind of rough for a bit, probably about a month. But yeah, no, eventually I just found some mojo and just kept it rolling. But I think I just really learned to mix better in zone, you know, throughout the counts and throughout lineups. And yeah, like I said, it's really just execution, just getting a guy 2 strikes as quick as you can, and then putting him away with that third or fourth pitch, and then just trying to keep it at that.
Dom, you have an interesting road to pro ball in that you were draft eligible a bunch of times from high school, JUCO, Dallas Baptist, and you finally get picked and go to the Mets organization. What was that like going through that process so many times? And when things really clicked your last year at DBU, and you knew that you were going to be, you know, bumped up to where you eventually were in the 3rd round, how did that sort of affect, you know, your mentality going in, that you know that you're good enough, but after waiting through all those times, now it's really here, and it's here at a stage where you could be such a high selection?
Yeah, no, it's been crazy, man. I know. I feel like my story is different from a lot of guys. You know, I was kind of just a back end guy in high school. You know, I had chances to do well, but it just wasn't there yet. And yeah, it just wasn't consistent enough, and my work ethic wasn't there. I didn't feel like. And then JUCO, I think I just kind of got some independence, like being away from a group that I grew up playing with, and like kind of figuring myself out as a starter, because I didn't convert to a starter till like my freshman year of junior college. And you know, just constantly going through the failures and taking out little stuff piece by piece. I think that's the biggest thing. But yeah, like after my first year, yeah, that's when I was like, okay, I can maybe, have a job at this for sure. And then after sophomore year, I was like, okay, just wasn't getting the opportunities. And then after DBU, my first year, that was the five-year-old draft because of COVID. I pretty much got an offer, but it was a low ball. So, I took my chances going back for that last year, and my family wanted me to finish my degree. I only had one more year. So did that. I really just put it all on myself to figure it out and just really go out and shove like I know I could. And I saw it in the short season. That's why it was so aggravating, because it was just so up and down. And then finally getting that call and having to be from the Mets. I have a bunch of family from New York, and it was just crazy. It was unreal. There was just so many things happening in my family, and like just nothing really felt real. I'm still kind of coming back down on things, but I'm still hoping for a lot more of those moments. Absolutely.
When you get into a pro organization and you come in with a body of work that's already really impressive, obviously the Mets just want to enhance what you do. What have those changes been like? Has there been much of a change, or has it been more of adding, okay, here's what we want you to try here with the slider or the curveball or whatever it is? What has that process been like, going from what made you successful at DBU and kind of evolving now as a pro guy?
I think honestly, a big key this year was utilizing the changeup. At DBU, I was really just fastball slider, and it was kind of my bread and butter. I was able to get away with that stuff in mid-major. But yeah, as you move up in the levels, you see guys are better at canceling out pitches and breaking down pitchers and how they work. And I think once I started challenging myself to throw the changeup in zone, I feel like that was really helpful. I mean, I threw out to lefties most frequently, but I was able to work that on some righties too. And I mean, because they know I had the fastball slider. Usually when a guy's a slider, they have feel for spin like a curveball too. So they kind of assume that's coming. But I feel like the changeup was really that distinguishing pitch that had something breaking the other way, where it was like, okay, I really, got to stick to approach here. And yeah, I'd say that change up along with the fastball elevated. I know I got the IVB, just executing that. I already knew that was, a lethal factor for me. But like I said, just constantly executing your pitches and getting that fastball up there, even early in counts. It just really helped me get ahead of guys and working that change up.
Dom, your MLB.com scouting profile refers to you as a, quote, spin rate darling. And spin rate is something that we've heard so much about, especially over the last 10 years or so. How much of spin rate is something that you do naturally, and how much is something that can be developed or coached into a pitcher? I mean, obviously there has to be some sort of natural aptitude with the way you throw, that your spin rate is different from other guys, but how much can that be enhanced by what, your delivery is like, or how you learn from a staff?
Yeah, no, I think it definitely could be enhanced, and it's cool seeing, all the tools they have now. They got like Clean Fuegos and the K clubs, and those all work on spin efficiency. But yeah, dude, God bless. Honestly, a lot of it's natural. I think I came from being an outfielder. I knew I had a good arm, and I really like long tossing, and so I think just getting feel for spin that way. And then once I got to DBU is when I learned, that analytical side of it and how that plays into, real time. And I realized, kind of how practical that was and how that made me, a distinguishable pitcher. And then, using it to my advantage, starting to pitch with it. But yeah, honestly, I feel like just long toss, man. I really love to throw the crap out of a ball. And then pull downs, that was another big thing. I learned to like throwing the crap out of a ball actually down, and kind of just all was able to translate it well off the mound. And yeah.
I mean, you're making me want to play long toss now, if that's what it's going to take. I'll just go out to Central Park from here.
Yeah.
But when you talk about DBU is when you really realize like, hey, this is a strength of mine. How is that explained to you? Were they getting into the weeds of saying like, your spin rate is 2,800 RPMs or whatever? Or was it just, hey, this is what it's doing, and this is why you're so good at it, just keep working at that?
It's kind of somewhere in between. I mean, I really had no idea about like I knew what spin rate was, but I didn't, know like the average again will be spin rate, those type of metrics to like make you understand, another metric. But like I said, in like JUCO and high school, I was getting told I had life on my ball, and I was like, I'm starting to throw harder. That's awesome. But once I got to DBU, I saw like there's kids on my team that threw harder than me still, and some of them are two seam, some are four seam. But yeah, pretty much it all happened after like one of our first scrimmages my first year. Josh Hopper was there. He was pitching coordinator with the Pirates now, but pretty much he called me over and he asked if I was using stuff, and I was like, no. I was like, what do you mean by stuff? I was like, some rosin. He's like, no, like sticky tack, and I was like, no, I don't use that. Why? And then he was like, because these are like average, spin, like how fast your ball spins. And he's like, this is where yours is at, which is higher than a lot of people. And then this IVB is a metric that's used to define ride pretty much. And if you're above like, 17 inches, which is like about average, you're elite. And I was like ripping like 22, 23s. And he's like, so that's crazy. And I was like, that is crazy. I'd like to learn more about this. And yeah, just working with him. He was able to work. He was able to show me drills to help out the spin efficiency. Like one of my favorite ones. Hated it at the time, but in retrospect, it was great. It was like a black hole. It was this massive like PVC pipe, and we'd like set it up on a box, like pretty much right at the top of the zone. And like I had to throw the ball through the tunnel without touching any of the piping, like not just there. I had to run it through and hit the screen in the back, and I started like to change like my eyesight and like how I was throwing through things with the fastball, and kind of just had all accumulated, and now we're steamrolling with it really.
Yeah, I mean, I believe you when you say that it was elite with the 22 inches. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's also the most literal use of the term pitch tunneling I've ever heard. You're throwing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
That's
I
amazing.
was like, I thought, yeah, 100%. So it was really cool. I think the biggest thing was just trying stuff. Like he had a lot of drills for us to try, and not all of them. I mean, not all drills are for all pitchers, but as you work and you go through your routine, you start to find stuff you like and stuff that hits those cues that you're working on. And he just had a couple of those drills that worked for me. That was definitely one of them.
Gotcha. Well, let's turn towards 2023 now. You were talking before about what you're doing this offseason, building up for this second spring training. What expectations do you have coming out of the gate, whether it's like where you're going to start 2023, because you got a healthy amount of starts at high A last year. Feels like you're on the doorstep of double A at the very least. So what are your expectations going into the second spring?
I mean, it's hard to say. Yeah, I was hoping I got bumped up to double A maybe the end of last year for like some extended playoffs, but had thrown a lot, and they just gave me the off season. I got to go to camp here in January in a couple weeks, but yeah, I really don't know. But I know either way, wherever I start, there's gonna be more eyes on me, with like pretty much this accolade hanging over my head. It feels like I don't know how they're gonna advertise it going into the season, but I assume people are gonna expect more out of me this year than last year. But I mean, I'm just gonna go out with the same mindset. I got my rocks. I'm gonna stick to them. Execution is the name of the game, and pretty much all my stuff's better than these hitters. I just gotta execute. That's literally all it is.
Dom, we opened by talking about, the fact that your squad just signed Carlos Correa, and they're in such a moment of big time contention right now. There is a lot of excitement that comes along with that, especially for a fan base. I would think there is some anxiety that comes along when you're a player because, kind of at any moment, especially as the trade deadline approaches over the summer or whatever it is, you could be on the move. Do you, and not just specifically you, but do you guys think about that much? Is there anxiety, or is it just kind of like, obviously you can't control that, so it doesn't do a whole lot of good to think about it? What is sort of the mental balance there?
Yeah, it's tough going through that first year and seeing like I made some good homies this year, and they ended up getting traded, and you see how fast it all goes, and you see how fleeting just your position really is. So I feel like the best way to just block out that noise is just just being where your feet are. Like it was hard. Like mid-season, we had some trades going on. I'm like, dang, that could literally happen to us at any time. So I mean, you really just got to get out there and just try to do your job the best you can. Like, you have zero say over it, and there's always going to be Twitter rumors like, oh, well, I've had stuff sent to me. I'm just like, how valid is it? Like, how valid is it? I'm not going to lose sleep over this. Like, if it happens, it happens, and there's usually an upside of getting traded. It shows you have some value. So, yeah, kind
All
of
right,
just
well,
go about it.
Well, just to go back to the Correa thing, was there a group text of like Mets prospects that was just going off this morning? How did you hear about it?
Yeah, no, I literally woke up and I saw one of our group chats like Correa, and I was like, what? And then I went on ESPN on the app and I saw that was like the top story. It's like, dang, because we were just talking about last night. Like I was gaming with some of my buddies, and they're like, dang, you guys see the Giants pulled the offer from Correa, and we're like, that's nuts. And then we woke up, we're like, that's even more nuts.
Now this affects me. This is not like a small thing.
This actually affects me. And I'm starting to, like, it's crazy. It's literally just dominoes pretty much. So, I mean, if I got blessed and I was able to see my name in that lineup starting a game, man, I would be freaking out, like so excited. But obviously trades are part of the game. So, whatever happens, we're chilling. It's crazy. It's crazy how it all works. And that's definitely a blockbuster deal.
Tom, I gotta ask you one question. You're in Arizona right now, and we were talking before we started recording about how great it is, to live in Arizona and have so much baseball infrastructure and all that. But then you get drafted by a team that's a grapefruit league team. Is that sort of annoying? Like you could have, you're around so many amazing spring training facilities.
Yeah.
Come February, it's like, all right, I got to go to Florida. Not that there's anything wrong with the grapefruit league, but like I'd be sort of annoyed.
Nah, it's definitely close, but so far, like it's tough. But thankfully, I have some family out there as well. My pops lives out there. He moved out there in like 2019, and my sister's about to move out there as well. But yeah, obviously, I was like, dang, that would have been cool to be picked up by a team, spring training Arizona. I can just chill out. But it's whatever. Like I said, I got family in New York too, and so once I get up there, I'll be seeing them, and it all works out. It could be worse. It is so humid out there. When I have to go pitch out there, I have to bring multiple uniforms. I have to bring multiple uniforms, and my cleats have suds coming out of the shoelaces because they're so wet. It sucks.
Well, you just said
a lot of baby powder.
Yeah, there you go. You just said you had family in New York too. You mentioned that before. You did get a chance to pitch in Brooklyn this year, which is kind of like a unique experience that Mets prospects have. They get to pitch in the city in which they hope to pitch in someday. So between your family, between that experience, what did you learn about what it's like to be a New Yorker?
It's sick. I mean, like, so my family's from Poughkeepsie, so they're about like an hour upstate from the city. But yeah, whenever we'd go visit as kids, we'd do like a day, go to like Times Square, and I was like, yeah, it's like tourists everywhere, so like it's pretty chill. But oh yeah, once I was living out there, especially over on like Coney Island, you see some creatures, you see some things, and it's a good time. It's fun. Like I love it because it's like you see something new every day, and just like there's just this like type of energy the city has. It's always a good time. But yeah, obviously getting to pitch there was awesome. And yeah, when we got to pitch at Hudson Valley, like I had so many family and friends come over from Poughkeepsie because it's right over there. And then yeah, kind of as we were out there, that Derek Jeter documentary came out, and we're watching it. He's talking about his time in the city, and he's like, I always got told, you're in the Big Apple, but you got to take small bites. And I was like, that's why the Mets put the first level in Brooklyn, and then you go out of the city. It's like, I got to get back to Queens now. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
That is awesome. Dom Hamel is the 12th ranked prospect in the New York Mets organization, 2022 Mets minor league pitcher of the year, and a dude who is avoiding the Arctic blast that is wrecking the rest of us across this continent. Dom, we're very jealous of the blue skies and the short sleeves that you're wearing right now. Yeah. Congrats on all success, man. Best of luck in 2023 and beyond, and we'll be watching. Thanks so much for the time.
I appreciate y'all.
Well, as we roll along here on the Show Before the Show podcast, the last edition of the Show Before the Show podcast in the 2022 calendar year, I am joined here in the Ernie Banks conference room by our own Benjamin Hill. Ben, first off, happy holidays. How are you?
Thank you, Sam. Happy holiday to you as well. You and yours, as they say.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. We're recording this a bit early to accommodate me, the podcast diva, but today is Tuesday, December 20th. And, I had vacation days to burn, or I don't want to say burn, savor, enjoy, cherish. I had vacation days to cherish. And so today is my last day of 2022. Well, hopefully not my last day of 2022, in life, but working.
Your last working day of
My
2020.
last working day of 2022.
Well, that's good because I feel like we get you kind of at a retrospective time, this being your last working day of 2022. But before I get into that, you did say taking the rest of the week off. What are you doing for the holiday, for Christmas coming up and the rest of the time off until the new year? Not you don't have to take me day by day, but generally.
I'll take you through the whole thing because as a child of divorce and my partner Jill, her parents are divorced, and let's just say that when you add it all up, we have 6 Christmases to attend or take part in with various family factions and whatnot. So 2 of those are already we've already done, but have some family visits on the way. But to me, it's really important whenever possible to be home on Christmas, especially now that I have a small family. That for all the visits and for all the running around, which has its joys within that, I really like waking up in my own place with my family on Christmas Day and just having a very low-key, slow morning. But my son is 21 months old. Well, he'll be 22 months on Christmas, if we're getting specific. So nothing is really all that slow or low-key with him around, going nuts, yelling at everything. He'll love the wrapping paper more than the presents, which is why I didn't get him anything.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you need to get your son a present when he's not even 2? He doesn't care. Everybody else gives him stuff.
Well, Harry, hopefully you're listening to this many years from now and trying to remember what your second Christmas was like, and you're just hearing your father say, "I didn't get him anything." But anyway,
yeah, that'll be part of the therapy.
Yeah, at least we can pinpoint exactly when you said it on the record in front of a microphone. But like I was just saying before, this being your last day of the year, kind of catching you at a retrospective time. I know we did this a little bit at the end of the season because the season had just ended, but that was a few months ago. Things can kind of crystallize in your thinking and in your memory as to this question. How are you going to remember the 2022 minor league season? Or if you want to expand that out into the 2022 calendar year in minor league baseball, how do you think this is going to be remembered?
Yeah, retrospective and introspective. This is a topic we've touched on a few times, so forgive me if I repeat myself a little bit, but I think we'll look at 2022 as a year of relative normalcy after the 2 most abnormal years in our lifetime, certainly for minor league baseball. I mean, I think for the industry, and it was a very different industry 70, 80 years ago. I mean, you probably have to look back all the way to World War II and the havoc that created all around the world and all sorts of levels. But minor league baseball, there were a lot of seasons without minor league baseball, but I think since then minor league baseball, so much change, leagues, teams, levels of play coming and going, but there's always been minor league baseball as a very active day in, day out, year in, year out thing for decades. And so to have that completely disrupted and then the industry completely restructured, 2022 was, the first year we said, okay, things are kind of normal here. I think there is room for, increasing normalcy to come. There was still a lot of staff turnover, still a lot of adjustment to, the restructuring of the industry and everything that came with that, and Major League Baseball being in full control. Still, some, not so much in 2022, but I think, a lot of attendance was down slightly, I think, compared to 2019, the last quote unquote normal season. And I think some of that was, even though COVID, of course, we're not saying it's gone, but COVID wasn't the day-to-day, stop everything concern it had been in 2020 and huge swaths of 2021. But I do think psychologically, after so many people were sort of out of their rhythms of, doing things like going to minor league baseball games, that, attendance didn't completely get back to normal. Because I think Everyone's been a little out of rhythm for the last several years. So 2022, I think on the whole was encouraging, people getting used to things, new realities, and building themselves back up for success. I did. Of course, when you're at an event like the winter meetings, you're talking to lots of people, you get lots of perspectives, but I do sense, a feeling of optimism right now going forward, with the sort of, obviously the worst is in the rear view, and there's still plenty to grow and build upon heading into 2023. And, hopefully just see as vibrant an industry as possible. Of course, minor league baseball, but hopefully for baseball as a whole, everyone, independent, summer, collegiate, anywhere where you can go pay money and in exchange for viewing a baseball game. I just hope that continues to grow in 2023. Just the good of the game. Sounds corny, but I think we want the sport of baseball to be as healthy as possible, and working towards that. So fingers crossed, knock on wood. This is a wood table right here. Hearty, strong knock by me just there, but we're feeling okay.
Yeah. And when you're talking about normal, I feel like people use that word as if there was a standard of normal, like something is normal. It's just something we're all not aspiring to be, but like you have an understanding of what normal is, but normal moves, it ebbs and flows within the years, within the decades, whatever. But when you look back at this year, what felt most normal to you? Was there a moment in your travels? Was there a moment in talking to somebody, or was, okay, maybe this isn't 2019, but this feels a little bit like that time again?
Well, I think there were a lot of small moments like that across the board. One that for whatever reason jumps into my mind, kind of representative of, feeling more normal. In early June, I did a little New England trip, and that included a stop at Hadlock Field, home of the Portland Sea Dogs. And, I met up with our good friend and colleague, Josh Jackson, while I was up there. And at that game, we were invited to take place in a between inning contest in which we, dressed up as lobster men, and lobsters were flung at us via lacrosse stick. And we had to each hold one side of a lobster trap and catch these lobsters that were being thrown at us. I mean, they were not living lobsters. But just to be at the game, with someone I knew and a friend, and not just kind of the lonely Ben's Biz existence, to feel like, hey, I'm here with somebody I know, and this is what minor league baseball is about, a local, who's showing me around a little bit, to be back on the field before a between inning contest, because those have been few and far between. They didn't happen at all in 2021 because of COVID restrictions. And now, the pitch clock is a bit of a problem. We've talked about the pitch clock. I think we all like it, but it's even less time to do the between inning contests and whatnot. But to be at a ballpark, in a baseball loving community like Portland, with our friend Josh Jackson there, wearing a silly costume, partaking in a silly activity, reminding me of, a lot of the things I did, especially my earlier days as quote unquote Ben's Biz. That was one of those moments where I was like, wow, the more things change, the more they stay the same, to the extent that I'm trying to catch lobsters flung from a lacrosse stick, with Josh Jackson holding the other end of the trap. That, to me, as weird as that example is, also represents normalcy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, you bringing up that story makes me think of our trip to Iowa, right? For the Field of Dreams. That wasn't normal. That not something we've
not normal. Season highlight, though.
Right. That's not something you and I have ever done together. We have not driven across half the country. We've gone to games together before, but they've mostly been in Brooklyn or in this specific area. But that kind of felt like something that was propelling things forward, right? It felt like, here's a new thing that we're trying to do. It's not just repeat 2019 successes or catch that lightning in a bottle again. It's how can we propel things forward? How can we do new things? Part of that for me was the MLB Pipeline Game of the Month, going to places, talking to players, getting them on social media, turning that into more bits of content for MLB.com and MILB.com. But kind of speaking of that, propelling things forward in the way we did with the Field of Dreams, and I hope we're able to do something like that again with a special event in minor league baseball. But when you look forward at 2023, what are you kind of hoping is the next step? It's not just normalcy. It's how can we grow, like you were talking about before, grow the game, kind of capital G's when I say that, grow the game. And one thing you were talking about with me before was this promo that Frisco just announced, which is kind of going backwards, but also it is a new thing. It's the Bad Choices Night, which is just pulling something from the headlines and getting a little of that minor league pizzazz again. It's a crazy little promo. It might not bring out tons of people to the ballpark again, but it captures headlines again. And it's just like, oh, this is the fun that minor league baseball can be. How do we kind of propel that forward in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, not to say that minor league baseball wasn't fun in 2021 and 2022. But, there's a lot of staffing turnover. As I said before, there was a lot of, getting used to MLB and being in full control. There was adjusting to the pitch clock. There was not being able to do, a lot of promotions on field between innings. So minor league baseball honestly did feel less fun. And something I've been really missing are just for so much of my career. I started writing, Ben's Biz blog in 2007, started traveling in 2010, and just throughout, covering minor league baseball, the business and culture thereof, so much of it was just something would happen in the nation or the world, some silly news story. And then it'd be just, asking ourselves in the office, all right, what team's going to do something here? Or me asking on Twitter, who's going to do something? Or me even suggesting an idea and sometimes being like, whoa, they're actually going to do that. There was that spirit of spontaneity and just getting your name out there, brainstorming in the office, having fun, being ridiculous, being not afraid to fail. And I just have not seen much of that lately. So in and of itself, this promotion that the Frisco Rough Riders announced yesterday, Monday, December 19th, in the scheme of, my career, minor league baseball in general, it's just a little blip. But for some reason, I was like, yes, that's what we need. It's Bad Choices Night. And it's inspired by this fan, Corey Humans, who caught Aaron Judge's 60-second home run ball, had the option to immediately sell it for $3 million, did not. And then when it went to auction, it sold for $1.5 million. I mean, hey,
he still did pretty well for himself.
Corey did pretty well. He caught a ball and got, over $1 million. But, this inspired the Frisco Rough Riders to say, let's have Bad Choices Night, at the ballpark, quote unquote, in light of the disappointing sale price for Aaron Judge's 60-second home run baseball. So they didn't even announce a date for it. It just says, the date of the event has not been finalized. It will be during the height of summer in the Texas heat. In keeping with the spirit of the evening, the Rough Riders will be giving a glass of warm milk to anyone who wants to emulate Ron Burgundy's Bad Choice in the original Anchorman film. In addition, Leon Lett and Robin Ventura have been invited to throw out a ceremonial first pitch, in honor of their bad choices they made in their sporting careers. Robin Ventura obviously was put in a headlock by 45-year-old Nolan Ryan. Leon Lett, I do have that Super Bowl memory. I believe he was running into the end zone for a touchdown, started to showboat, and then the ball was stripped away before he got into the end
Well, isn't
zone.
this the picture is like him touching the ball that resulted in a fumble?
Oh,
though.
so that's a different Leon Lett thing.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of when he got in the Super Bowl, when he got stripped by Don Beebe, I want to say, because he was showboating before he got into the end zone.
He like put the ball down by his side as he's running in. Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, maybe Leon Lett has like multiple, nothing against, why are we piling on Leon Lett here?
Well, it to take away, if we're going to use a football example, let's just use the entire New England Patriots offense from the.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, talk about bad
offensive coordinators, everybody, just bad choices all around. I was in a movie and I missed the game, thankfully, and turned on my phone to multiple texts from my father and many people I'm close to, saying things that I cannot repeat on this podcast. So yeah, maybe they could throw out a first pitch too.
Yeah, and that's a bad. Obviously, the
bad choices continue.
Yeah, the Patriots made a series of bad choices in that final play against the Raiders, and exactly. And so this promotion, Bad Choices Night, you can keep brainstorming it. You can think of other things that are bad choices. By the time the Rough Riders get around to staging this at a TBD date in the Texas heat, how many people will be even thinking about the sale price of Aaron Judge's 60-second home run? I used to call these press release promos, in that it doesn't really matter sometimes what you actually do at the ballpark. It's just responding, showing that you're a creative entity, that you're having fun, that you're willing to riff. And we need so much more of that. I do get concerned sometimes just how much staff turnover there was throughout, 2020, 2021, reduction of minor league teams. A lot of people in the industry left. And sometimes when I'm just working on something and I'm trying to contact a team, I look at the staff page, and this is me who's made a living, in covering minor league baseball. I often don't recognize a lot of the people. So it's nothing against a lot of the new employees. But really what I hope to see happen is that spirit of minor league baseball continuing to, a so-called next generation, so that we can continue to have fun with these type of promotions, that throughout the season, there will be theme nights big and small that have that kind of creative spirit. Because even if these promotions on an individual level don't do a huge amount, to drive revenue and to do all the really put butts in seats, and do all the really important things that a minor league baseball team, as a business that is, its bread and butter and reason to exist is live events, maybe the game itself, maybe these promotions don't do a huge amount, but I think having that spirit, having that level of creativity, and what these little things mean for how you operate on the bigger picture, willing to take risks, willing to be ridiculous, willing to see something and say, hey, let's just do this. That to me, makes it a lot more fun to be in the industry. And, it needs as many great minds as it can get always. And B, it means that the fans who are paying attention really start to appreciate what their team and what these teams do. So more bad choices.
Good choices / bad choices, I guess. All right. So Ben, that's one very specific hope you have for the industry in 2023. And I'll get into maybe your specific predictions about the industry, but what other hopes do you have for this season coming up? I know a lot of teams are putting together promo calendars now or already have. Some of the announcements will be coming up in the weeks and months ahead. There's also other changes coming to the game. We saw netting is expanding from foul pole to foul pole. That's not necessarily happening this year, but we might be seeing a little bit more of it as teams prep for the deadline on that. When you look forward to 2023, these bad choices nights are a great start. What else are you hoping comes to minor league baseball as an industry?
Well, as an industry as a whole, as many people going to minor league games, and I think getting back to 2019 attendance levels, I think will be a goal of everyone, getting back to those levels and exceeding them. Of course, you might not exceed them in raw numbers because there are less teams, but I mean, per game average, team by team, league by league, getting back to the level they were before there was these massive changes that we talked about earlier. I mean, I think that is the main goal of the industry. I saw optimism regarding that at the winter meetings. There's a lot of, new sponsorships coming down the pike, new and continuing, national initiatives that we've talked about a lot, like Copa and the Nine and that sort
Marvel,
of thing.
which will
and the Marvel, Defenders
expanded.
of the Diamond. I think teams see a lot of room for growth with those sort of things. And if they can combine that with their own innovative, fresh, risk-taking marketing, and as fans in the market, their own local markets, kind of refamiliarize themselves or even learn for the first time, how fun it is to get out to a game. I think it really is about, getting back to where things were, and we can, hopefully stop having conversations about like, where are we? We're almost there. Getting back to a so-called new normal that really feels like a foundation that can be built upon.
Yeah. And I think, minor league baseball is local. Like all of these teams are looking to have impacts in their communities, but I think these national initiatives and how they're continually expanding. I mean, we just mentioned Marvel, but the fact that that's going to become a much bigger deal in 2023 is going to be huge. Copa, obviously, always looking for that to get bigger and bigger and bigger. We were talking to our coworker Michael Clare here in the office, and he was talking about how people are picking up hats and asking what is this hat? Well, who does this belong to? Should I be following them? I mean, that's all it takes sometimes is to get a new fan from across the country to introduce a new hat. So I'm looking forward to seeing that expand more and more in 2023. And like you said, not just grow the game, not just get more people out to the ballpark, but like different people too. I think that's going to be a huge thing. All right, Ben. Well, I did mention a prediction. What is a prediction you have for 2023?
A prediction for 2023. I predict that minor league baseball will not quite reach those 2019 attendance numbers, but will get within a very close number overall, 95% or more.
Okay.
They will, and then I think we'll be at a point where we say, okay, the new baseline has been achieved. And I would like to predict that for the industry. For myself, I would like to predict that, I just keep being the greatest of all time. No, there's always room for improvement. And I've been doing this job too long. No, not too long.
No, right.
A long time. And there is always room for improvement. The ballpark guide projects, which is nearing completion now, has been a cool new thing to be a part of. The weekly newsletter has been a cool thing to be a part of. Doing a trip with you and Kelsey all the way to Iowa, and covering things in that way as a group, a standalone event. That was, I think, something to be built upon. Not that game specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to predict, hopefully, new ways of doing things for myself to keep this fresh as well, in tandem with an industry that is increasingly fun to write about. Because it hasn't been necessarily as fun as it had been in recent years. And I just think, everybody wants that sense of, where you're kind of carried along by the energy of it day to day, which is what I want to happen and what I'm going to predict will happen.
I mean, that's when minor league baseball is at its best, right? Is when it is unpredictable, when we do learn new things, I've long said it, breakout prospects are my favorite types of prospects, or guys you can study, their tools for as long as you want, and then all of a sudden they do something new and exciting, and that gets me more energized. And that's true of the industry too. That's true of baseball as a whole, of like, hey, here's this promo I didn't see coming. How are other teams going to try to copy that? Is this going to become a copycat type thing, or are teams going to be energized to try something new themselves? There's all sorts of ripple effects in this, and ones we don't see coming. But I will end this segment on this, Ben. Let's flash forward to, I'll say, December 19th, 2023. You and I are in a different conference room. We're having the same discussion about what did the 2023 season mean to us. What do you think we'll be talking about on that day?
Well, I think if our predictions come true, we'll just be having the same
Boasting the whole
conversation
time,
and
right?
just saying this is really what happened. It's tough to say what exactly we'll be talking about. I mean, I'll have like a beard down to my knees and my hair is going to be completely gray at that point. And hopefully we'll be talking about, on site, all the places that we visited in 2023. It's tough for me to go somewhere totally new right now, at least in, the world of affiliated baseball. But I'd like to be looking back at places that I really reconnected with that I hadn't been to in 8, 9, 10 years or more. I think would be what I would hope to be talking about, having a real renewed sense and a kind of a renewed relationship with those teams, with those ballparks, with the people who work for them now, is what I would want to be looking back on and hopefully feeling, I and we in our own different ways in which we operate, would be successful in that, and feeling as connected as possible and feeling as optimistic as possible.
All right. Well, I look forward to having that very optimistic conversation at this time next year. Ben, before we let you go, thank you for everything this year. I do feel like it was a successful 2022 season on the podcast in general, with our writing, with our coverage of this thing. It's always been a blast, and yeah, we'll catch you when both of us are back in 2023.
Absolutely, Sam. I'm going to enjoy my time, away from you. No,
please do.
But the podcast has been a great thing about 2022. It's been going on for a long time, but I think being a little bit more involved with it this year, working with you very regularly on it, learning to say regularly as quickly as possible. These have all been great things. And, Sam Dykstra, ladies and gentlemen, in case you don't know, is the hardest working man in show business being MLB.com.
I don't know about that.
No, I do know about that. Full disclosure, I think I had to give a little feedback for your review, a peer feedback, and I said, Sam works too hard sometimes.
Yeah.
I said this guy needs a tropical vacation and a drink with an umbrella in it.
Instead, I went to Europe where it was 50 degrees.
Exactly, you were even working on vacation, but it's a good trait, and good work.
Well, good work by you too. Now we will throw it to another person who does tremendous work here on the podcast. Here's Josh Jackson with the last Ghost of the Minors of the 2022 calendar year.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Minors. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in Radioland must identify the legitimate historical ball club hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One once inspired cheers and boos from the stands. The others inspire questions from the peanut gallery. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball teams did at one time exist. A, the Valhalla Thors. B, the Toledo Ironmen. C, the Walla Walla Wolverines. You might think I'm bending the truth, but the correct answer is B, the Toledo Ironmen. The Mud Hens moniker, widely known among minor league baseball fans today and made famous worldwide by the 1970s situation comedy television program MASH, dates back to the 19th century. So guessing that the Ironmen once represented Ohio's Glass City required superhuman bravery. But not only did the Ironmen really play in Toledo at one point, but the marvels never cease. So too did a short-lived 1885 club called the Avengers. Assemble. As for the Ironmen, they were a force to be reckoned with in the American Association of 1916 to 1918, and in fact picked up the mantle of the Mud Hens, who flew the coop to Cleveland in 1914, only to return and peck away the avian identity and, what a stark difference, replace it with the industrial-oriented Ironmen. Managed by Toledo's own Roger Bresnahan, the Hall of Famer-to-be credited with inventing shin guards as the backstop who caught the likes of Christy Matheson and Rube Marquardt, the Ironmen looked a bit rusty from the jump. Actually, it was more of a hop. The Toledo club of 16 went 78 and 86 to finish 6th out of 8. And the Ironmen sunk even lower in 1917, despite Bresnahan's late July signing of former Yankee star hurler Russell Ford, who was thus reunited with one-time Yankees catcher Ed Sweeney. The famous old battery wouldn't spark, and Toledo lost 95 out of 152 games to finish dead last. If you found Toledo's 1917 season upsetting, the Ironmen of 18 are really going to get you bent out of shape. By the time the American Association suspended operations on July 21st due to American involvement in the Great War, Bresnahan's boys had already managed to drop 54 games and win only 23. Last place with a winning percentage of .299, and they had a collective batting average of .221. After the guns of August went quiet and baseball broke out again in the association for 1919, the Toledo club was rechristened the Mud Hens. And that's how the Ironmen wore out. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these teams made like a merry outlaw in the minors of yesteryear? A, the Fort Pierce Blackbeards. B, the Omaha Robin Hoods. C, the Columbus Magpies. Want to know the answer? Protect your property. Or tune into the next Ghosts of the Miners. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill is putting tinsel on the tree, and he forgot to cut it down.
So huge thanks to Dom Hamel. Huge thanks to Benjamin Hill. Didn't get a chance to talk to Ben today. Sorry, Ben. I hope you enjoy the holidays. Huge thanks to Josh Jackson as well. And that's just about going to put a fitting holiday bow on our last episode of 2022. What do you got going on for the holidays, man?
Yeah, I'm going home, going back to Massachusetts, seeing the kids on Christmas morning, which I've talked to a lot of people about this. It's just so much more fun when there are kids around on Christmas. I love my family very much. Like every holiday I get to spend with them is great. But like seeing kids open up presents on Christmas morning is just a whole other kettle of fish. And I'm super excited for them to experience it. My nephew it was not a joke, but it sounds like the perfect joke. He came home from kindergarten the other day and he told his mom, my sister, I think I want a suitcase for Christmas. My sister's like, it's the week before Christmas. All the presents are bought. What are you talking about? And he's just like, well, I need a suitcase because the teacher told us today we're all going on vacation. And I'm like, you are 5 years old and you're too smart for your own good. I love you. That's a great thing to say, but it's just so hilarious. So we'll see if he gets a
That is
suitcase on
awesome.
Sunday.
That
What are
is
you
awesome.
doing?
I'm actually just sticking around Denver. I ordinarily travel out your way to New York to spend it with my sister and her family, but this time around, back to traveling with my broadcasting schedule. So yeah, at Oregon State today here on the 21st, getting home on the 22nd. Just going to stick around Denver with the lady. Her family's coming to town, which will be really cool. And yeah, gonna have a chill. Well, that's probably the wrong term to use, because on Thursday in Denver, the wind chill could hit negative 50 degrees, which would be the coldest temperature ever recorded in Denver. Not looking forward to that, as you would imagine, but I am excited to just like kind of take it easy. I honestly don't know, with the exception of the pandemic year, I don't know the last time that I spent Christmas in my hometown. So I'm excited. It's ordinarily just filled with travel and all that kind of stuff, but I'm kind of excited to be around and just have a small Christmas, which will be really cool. So that'll be good. Home through New Year's, which will be good. My girlfriend's a TCU alum, so she is headed to Phoenix to go to the college football playoff semifinal. I can't go because I have a college basketball broadcast that day. New Year's, like, I'm not really a New Year's guy anyway, because I'm lame. So like, I'm fine with that. And you know, I don't have like any huge New Year's plans ever. So I'm excited to be able to at least like watch those games. And then I'll probably be one of those people at 37 who just like watches the East Coast midnight celebration. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to bed. I'm out of here. I'll sleep.
That's fine. That's good to know you're that way.
I'm fine with it. Yeah.
How much purple do you have in your wardrobe?
I'm guaranteeing that she is giving me TCU stuff for Christmas. Guaranteed.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't have any TCU gear. And I have said, like, you know, I've worked with some TCU guys in the minors. A hat would be cool. So I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna get a.
It's also a gift for you and a gift for her. So
exactly. It's
wins
you know,
all around.
we're killing two birds with one stone. So
right.
All right, man. Well, enjoy the holidays. Travel safely. All of you do the same. Everybody be safe. For another year of the Show Before the Show podcast, we thank you so much for your interest, your support over the last seven years, if you can believe it. And for everybody at MILB, for Joshua Jackson, Benjamin Hill, Samuel Dykstra, my name is Tyler Mon. Enjoy the holidays. We'll talk to you next year.